When your CEO's smug grin signals your downfall, you know the game was rigged long before you sat at the table. "We're bringing in consultants with fresh perspectives," Marcus stated while sliding termination papers across the oak table. "Your legacy systems are holding us back." My name is Adrian Holt, 50 years old, and until that moment, I'd been the senior systems architect at SteelCore Solutions for 20 years. I built their core software platform from nothing but caffeine and code when we were just 8 people working out of a warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina. I nodded without emotion, taking the packet. I didn't argue or plead, just said, "I understand," and started packing my desk while HR watched. The new CEO had been with us for exactly 4 months. Young guy, barely 30. 8, brought in by the private equity firm that acquired us last year. He wore bespoke suits and talked about streamlining operations and modernizing our approach. Never once asked me how the system actually worked. As I packed, Clara from accounting slipped into my office, her face pale. "Adrian, Marcus told us you were obstructing progress," she whispered. "I heard him plan this weeks ago. They're erasing you to sell the tech." My gut twisted. "Why didn't you tell me, Clara?" She teared up. "I was scared. They threatened my pension." I gripped her shoulder. "It's not over, Clara. They'll regret this." That morning I'd watched him stride into the office with 3 consultants from some high-profile firm in Boston. Didn't take a genius to figure out where things were headed. 20 years, I'd turned down better-paid jobs, missed my daughter's piano recitals, spent countless nights troubleshooting server issues while everyone else slept. I did it because I believed in what we built. They gave me 45 minutes to clear out. I took 20. On my way, I passed Clara. She'd been with me since the early days, her eyes widened, seeing my box of belongings. "Adrian, what's happening?" "Time for fresh perspectives," I said quietly. The security guard walked me out. Evan, a good kid whose uncle and I golfed together on weekends. He looked at the ground. "I'm sorry about this, Mr. Holt. Not your fault." In the parking lot, Evan hesitated. "Marcus bragged about cleaning house at the last meeting," he muttered. "Said your code was his ticket to a big payout. Be careful, Adrian." My jaw clenched, but I nodded. "Thanks, Evan. Keep your head down." I drove home in silence, no music, no calls, just the hum of my car's engine. My wife, Vanessa, wasn't home yet. I set my box on the kitchen counter and pulled out my coffee mug, family photos, and a small external hard drive, nothing company property. Then I made a pot of coffee and pulled out my personal laptop. I opened a folder I'd created years ago. Inside was documentation proving I'd written the core algorithm that powered SteelCore's entire platform, on my own time, using my own equipment. The timestamp and copyright registration predated my employment contract by 8 months. I'd offered it to the company on a perpetual license basis, something the new management clearly never bothered to research. I sipped my coffee, knowing I wouldn't need to wait long. The first system would fail within days. I met Victor Ramsey in 2003 at a programming conference in Atlanta. We bonded over a shared frustration with the existing supply chain systems. He had just started SteelCore with his cousin and 4 developers. Their product showed promise but couldn't scale. Over coffee, I sketched out an algorithm that could solve their database bottleneck. He hired me on the spot. For the first 6 years, we worked 90-hour weeks. I missed my son Noah's first soccer game because I was debugging server crashes. Vanessa nearly left me twice. "You're married to that company," she'd say. She wasn't wrong. When Victor had his stroke in 2010, I stepped up, not as CEO. I didn't want that job, but as the technical backbone. I kept things running while everyone panicked. When investors came sniffing, I showed them our growth metrics. When competitors tried poaching our talent, I convinced key engineers to stay. Last year I confronted Marcus after he sidelined my team. "Your consultants are clueless about our systems," I said in his office. He smirked, leaning back. "Adrian, your code's a relic. We're building a future without you." I stood firm. "That relic runs your entire platform. Fire me and it crumbles." His eyes flashed. "Keep talking and you'll be out by tomorrow." Victor sold the company in 2018, Said he was tired, wanted to spend time with his grandkids. I understood but felt the first crack forming. The new owners were different. All quarterly numbers and growth projections. Then came the pandemic. Our system kept functioning when others failed. Our clients, hospitals, logistics firms, state agencies relied on us completely. I worked 22-hour days ensuring nothing broke. The board gave me a plaque and a bonus, nice gestures. Last year, another acquisition, private equity this time. They installed Marcus Vaughn as CEO. 3 weeks after he started, he canceled our annual development retreat. Unnecessary expense, he called it, though it cost less than his signing bonus. 4 weeks in, he reorganized the engineering team without consulting me, brought in his MIT buddies as strategy consultants. A month ago, he called me outdated in a management meeting, said we needed to rethink our approach from the ground up. I saw it coming but kept my head down, kept the systems running. Vanessa noticed something was wrong. She's always been perceptive. "They're pushing you out, aren't they?" she asked one night. "Maybe. What are you going to do?" I just shrugged. But that weekend I updated my records, verified my copyright registration, made sure my personal code repositories were properly documented, not because I plan to cause trouble, just because I believe in being prepared. That night, Vanessa sat me down. "Adrian, they're not just firing you, they're stealing your life's work," she said, her voice fierce. "Fight them, you owe it to us." I nodded, her words igniting a fire I'd suppressed for months. Through it all, I kept one thing to myself. The original algorithm, the mathematical heart of everything SteelCore sold, had never actually been transferred to the company. I'd licensed it to them. There's a difference, a big one. 4 days after my termination, I was fixing our backyard shed when my phone started buzzing. 6 missed calls from SteelCore's main number, 3 from Marcus's direct line, 1 voicemail. "Adrian, this is Marcus. We're having some issues with the core systems. Need your expertise. Call me back ASAP." I put my phone away and continued hammering. An hour later, Clara texted frantic. "Marcus is blaming you for the crashes, says you sabotaged the systems before you left. What's happening?" I replied, "He's lying. Stay calm. They broke my algorithm. I'll handle this." More calls, texts from former team members. "Systems are crashing. Nobody knows what to do. The consultants broke something in the main algorithm. Clients are threatening to pull contracts." I finished the shed, showered, and made dinner for Vanessa and the kids. We watched a movie together. I turned my phone off. The next morning I woke up to an email from Marcus, marked, "Urgent Consulting Opportunity." He offered me $400, 0 cents per hour, to come in and assist with transition issues. No mention of what happened 4 days earlier. I declined politely. By noon, Marcus called, his voice shaking with rage. "You're killing us, Adrian. Fix this, or I'll make sure you're blacklisted in tech." I stayed calm. "You fired me, Marcus. You broke the system. Not my problem." He slammed the phone down. By noon, their legal team contacted me, something about proprietary technology and employee obligations. I forwarded it to my lawyer without comment. My lawyer called me an hour later, laughing. "They clearly haven't read your original contracts," he said. "The algorithm's copyright is registered to you personally. You granted them a license that specifically prohibits modification without written consent. You're completely in the clear." That's when the reality truly hit me. 20 years, all that sacrifice, the missed anniversaries and school plays, the sleepless nights, and they discarded me like outdated hardware. I walked to my home office and pulled out a business card I'd kept in my desk drawer for nearly a year. Patricia Langley, CTO of Horizon Dynamics. She'd approached me at a conference last summer, impressed with what SteelCore had built. "If you ever want to change," she'd said, "we'd create something special for you." I'd been loyal then. Now I was free. I didn't call Patricia immediately. Instead, I drove to Lake Norman and sat watching boats cut through the water. For the first time in years, my thoughts weren't consumed by server loads or code deployments. My phone rang again. "Marcus." "Adrian, we need to talk." The The situation is critical. I'm listening. Our clients are threatening to leave. The consultants can't figure out your system architecture. We need you back. As what? A pause. As a senior consultant, with appropriate compensation, of course. And the outdated legacy systems? Another pause. We may have been hasty in our assessment. I laughed coldly. Hasty? You called my life's work obsolete, Marcus. You're begging now because you're drowning. His silence confirmed I'd hit the mark. I watched a great blue heron land gracefully on a dock across the water. I'll think about it, I said, but I already knew I wouldn't be going back. Not as a consultant. Not on their terms. On the drive home, my mind was quiet but resolute. The realization wasn't just that they needed me, it was that I didn't need them. 3 days later, I accepted Patricia's lunch invitation. We met at a quiet restaurant in Greensboro, away from Charlotte's tech district. I heard about SteelCore's situation, she said after we ordered. Their systems have been unstable for nearly a week. I nodded but said nothing. Their clients are getting nervous, especially the logistics networks. I took a sip of water. They have capable engineers, but not the architect. She studied me. You built something remarkable there, Adrian. Something that shouldn't be lost because of corporate short-sightedness. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a job offer. Chief Innovation Officer. 3 times my previous salary, equity, a team of my choosing. We want to build the next generation of what you created, she said, but with you properly valued this time. I leaned forward. Why trust me, Patricia? Marcus is spreading lies that I sabotaged SteelCore. She smiled thinly. I know a desperate man when I see one. Your work speaks for itself. Join us, and we'll make them regret ever letting you go. I told her I'd think about it. Wanted to discuss it with Vanessa first. When I got home, there was a dark SUV parked outside our house. 2 men in sharp suits stood on my porch. SteelCore's lawyers. Mr. Holt, the older one said, we've been trying to reach you regarding an urgent company matter. I'm not with the company anymore. This concerns intellectual property developed during your employment. We'll need all your personal devices for examination. Standard procedure in these situations. I knew what they were after. Evidence that I'd taken company code or used company resources to develop my algorithm. Something to invalidate my copyright. You'll need to speak with my attorney, I said, handing them his card. I have nothing else to discuss. That night, Vanessa overheard me on the phone with my lawyer. They're scared, Adrian, she said, her eyes blazing. They know you hold the keys. Don't let them bully you, I nodded. They're about to learn what happens when you betray the wrong person. That evening, Marcus called again. Your lawyer's being difficult, he said. This could get messy, Adrian. Legal battles, public statements, none of us want that. What do you want, Marcus? Come back, 8 months, full salary. Help the transition team understand the systems, and we'll part ways amicably. The company keeps all rights to the technology, and you get a clean break. The core algorithm was never SteelCore's property, I said. I licensed it to the company before I was even an employee. Silence, then. That's absurd. Everything you developed was work for hire. Check the original licensing agreement from 2003. It's still binding. The documentation doesn't exist. We've been through everything. Victor kept a copy. I kept a copy. The Copyright Office has a copy. More silence. We'll need to verify that claim, he finally said, voice tight. Take your time. The next day, they locked out all my former team members' access while the consultants attempted a system rebuild. By evening, 4 client servers had crashed completely. Vanessa found me in the garage, methodically organizing tools I hadn't touched in years. They're imploding, aren't they? She asked. I nodded. Does that make you happy? I put down the wrench I was holding. No. Good people work there. They don't deserve this. Neither did you, she said softly. The following morning, SteelCore stock dropped 25% when news broke about critical system failures. My former team members started texting. What did you do? Did you sabotage something before leaving? I responded to each one the same way. I did nothing. They modified a licensed component without permission. By noon, Clara called, her voice breaking. Marcus is firing anyone who worked with you, Adrian. He's saying we're tainted. Help us. I clenched my fists. Hold on, Clara. I'm working on something big. You'll be safe. By afternoon, Marcus had gone from threats to bargaining, offering me a substantial consulting contract and public apology. I didn't respond. That evening, one of the consultants found the licensing agreement in Victor's archived files. Within an hour, SteelCore's legal team contacted my attorney with a completely different tone. The trap they'd set had collapsed around them instead. 8 days after my termination, I met Victor for lunch. He'd been retired for 4 years but still kept tabs on the company he'd founded. They really stepped in it, he said, shaking his head. Trying to rebuild your algorithm from scratch? Idiots. We were sitting at his favorite diner in Asheville, away from anyone who might recognize us. Did you know this would happen? I asked. Victor stirred his coffee. I knew they didn't understand what they bought. These private equity guys never do. They see numbers, not architecture. He pulled out a worn folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Remember this? Inside was our original partnership agreement from 2003. Not the company employment contract, the personal agreement between Victor and me. It stated clearly that the algorithm remained my intellectual property, with SteelCore receiving an exclusive perpetual license contingent on my continued employment or mutual separation agreement. You protected me back then, I said. Victor nodded. You were taking a risk joining a startup. I wanted you to keep ownership of your creation if things went south. Victor's voice hardened. Marcus tried to bribe me to stay quiet about the agreement. I told him to shove it. This is your fight, Adrian. But I'm in your corner. Did you tell the new owners? I tried, mentioned it during due diligence. They weren't interested in technical details from the past. He made air quotes with his fingers. Just wanted the assets and client list. That's when the full picture came into focus. Marcus hadn't just fired me on a whim. The private equity firm was planning to strip SteelCore for parts, sell off the client relationships and proprietary technology separately for maximum profit. They needed me gone because I was the only one who truly understood how everything connected. My termination wasn't about fresh perspectives. It was about making their asset stripping easier. There's more, Victor said quietly. Before I left, I put a clause in the sale agreement. If the core technology becomes non-functional for more than 12 consecutive days, I have the right to buy back the company at a predetermined price. I stared at him. Why would they agree to that? They didn't read the fine print, too focused on closing the deal, he smiled. Also, I told them it protected their investment if the technology failed. So, you can buy it back. We can buy it back, he corrected. I've got some money set aside, and a few of the original investors are interested, but we'd need you. I leaned forward, adrenaline surging. They thought they could bury me, Victor. Let's take it all back and make them choke on their greed. The pieces were shifting in my mind. Not revenge exactly, something more precise. A correction. That evening I received an email from an anonymous account. Inside was evidence that Marcus and the consultants had been planning to sell our logistics division to a competitor, a move that would have violated client confidentiality agreements and potentially exposed sensitive data. One of my former team members was clearly feeding me information. I forwarded it to my lawyer. The next day, 4 major clients announced they were suspending their contracts with SteelCore due to reliability concerns. Their combined business represented 45% of the company's annual revenue. By the weekend, the board called an emergency meeting. Marcus was placed on administrative leave. On day 11 of the system failures, SteelCore's general counsel reached out with a settlement offer, a $2,500,000 0 cents payment in exchange for immediate license reinstatement. I didn't respond. That night, Vanessa and I sat on our back deck watching the sunset. Victor wants to buy the company back, I told her. With you? With me, she took my hand. Do you want that? I thought about my 20 years, the code, the late nights, the missed family moments. Not sure yet, I said honestly. Tomorrow would be day 12. Vanessa's eyes gleamed. They tried to destroy you, Adrian. Take it back and show them who you are. Day 12 arrived with SteelCore's systems still offline. Financial analysts were predicting bankruptcy if the situation continued. Former colleagues reported the office was half empty, either layoffs or resignations. I met with Victor and my attorney at a private office downtown. Patricia from Horizon joined us by video call. "The board is desperate," my lawyer explained. "They've offered $4 million, 0 cents for a permanent license transfer." "And if we wait?" I asked. Victor leaned forward. "My buyback clause activates at midnight. The predetermined price is $10 million, 0 cents for the entire company." Victor leaned forward. "I've secured $5 million, 0 cents in backing. The other 5 would have to come from new partners." All eyes turned to Patricia on the screen. "Horizon is prepared to partner," she said. $5 million, 0 cents for 45% stake, contingent on Adrian joining as CTO with appropriate equity. Patricia's voice was firm. "We're betting on you, Adrian. Marcus is finished. Let's rebuild SteelCore into something unstoppable." I hadn't expected this twist. "I thought you wanted me at Horizon." "This is better," Patricia replied. "You'd be rebuilding something that matters to you, with the right team and support, and our companies could develop joint ventures that benefit both." My mind raced through possibilities. Taking back SteelCore would mean saving jobs, protecting client relationships built over decades, continuing work I believed in. "There's one more thing," I said. "The current employees. Many stayed loyal despite everything. They deserve protection." "Agreed," Victor said. "No layoffs for at least 8 months and an employee ownership program." I nodded. "Then I'm in." We spent the day preparing documentation. My lawyer drafted the license transfer agreement with specific conditions. Victor contacted board members who'd worked with him before, explaining the situation. Patricia prepared the partnership terms. At 4:00 p.m. we submitted formal notice of Victor's intent to exercise his buyback option. At 5:30 p.m., Marcus called, panic evident in his voice. "Adrian, whatever you're being offered, we'll double it. Just fix the systems today." "It's not about money," I said. "Then what, a public apology? Your old job back? Name it. It's about building something that lasts, something that matters." Marcus's voice cracked. "You're ruining me, Holt. I'll make sure you never work again." I hung up, his threats empty. By 7:00 p.m., Marcus had been officially terminated by the board. They reached out directly, desperate to avoid the buyback. "We've made mistakes," the chairman admitted. "But we can still make this right." "You're right," I agreed, "by honoring Victor's buyback clause and facilitating an orderly transition." At 11:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the deadline, they conceded. The board approved Victor's buyback. Horizon's partnership was accepted. The paperwork was signed. At midnight, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a simple email to my former team. "The algorithm will be reinstated tomorrow morning. SteelCore is under new ownership. No jobs will be lost. I'll explain everything at the all-hands meeting. Adrian." Vanessa sat beside me as I hit send. "So, you're going back," she said. "Not back. Forward." I closed my laptop. "Different company now, different terms. We'll be busier than ever." "For a while," I admitted, "but this time I won't miss the important stuff." She smiled, skeptical but supportive. The next morning, I drove to the office for the first time since my termination. People stared as I walked through the lobby. Some looked confused, others relieved. Clara from accounting hugged me in the elevator. "What happened?" she whispered. "Long story," I said, "but the short version? Sometimes you have to let something break to fix it properly." Clara gripped my arm. "Marcus tried to ruin us, Adrian. You saved us." The conference room was packed for the all-hands meeting. Victor stood at the front, looking energized despite his age. Patricia joined by video. I took my place beside them, feeling the weight of what we were about to rebuild. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. 7 months after regaining control of SteelCore, we held a product launch at the Charlotte Convention Center. The room was packed with clients, industry analysts, and media. Victor opened with the company's history and vision. Patricia spoke about our partnership with Horizon. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the podium, aware that Marcus was sitting in the back row. He'd landed at a competitor and was clearly there to gather intelligence. "Today we're unveiling Nexus Flow," I said, "a completely reimagined system architecture that builds on our core strengths while embracing new possibilities." The screens behind me displayed the interface, streamlined, powerful, elegant. What makes this system unique isn't just the technology, it's the people behind it. Our team, many who've been with us for over a decade, built this together. I nodded to the front row where my development team sat. "And we've restructured our company so they have an ownership stake. Their commitment deserves nothing less." The audience applauded. I noticed Marcus shifting uncomfortably. I locked eyes with him briefly. "Some tried to tear us down," I said, my voice steady. "They failed because we built something stronger than their greed. We've also established the Steel Core Foundation, which will open source select components of our technology for use in education and public service." More applause. "Finally, I'm pleased to announce that every client affected by last year's system failure will receive 3 years of service at no charge, plus migration support to our new platform." The room erupted. It was a bold move financially, but Victor, Patricia, and I had agreed. Rebuilding trust was worth the cost. As we opened for questions, Marcus slipped out the back door. He'd come expecting to see a company limping back from disaster. Instead, he witnessed one transformed by it. His new employer's stock dropped 10% by closing bell. Later, Patricia pulled me aside. "You humiliated him out there, Adrian. That was personal." I shrugged. "He made it personal when he tried to steal my life's work. Sometimes the best revenge isn't striking back, it's rising higher." 14 months after the buyback, I drove to Lake Norman on a clear Sunday morning. No laptop, no phone, just a fishing rod and a small cooler. Victor was waiting in his boat, gray hair beneath his worn baseball cap. "Right on time," he said as I climbed aboard. We navigated to his favorite spot and cast our lines in comfortable silence. "Board approved the employee ownership expansion," he mentioned after a while. "Another 6% allocated." "Good." I watched my line. "They've earned it." We caught nothing for an hour, just talked about our families, football, anything but work. Eventually, Victor asked, "Do you ever think about how it all played out?" I considered the question. The past 14 months had been the most challenging and rewarding of my career, taking back the company, rebuilding the systems and the culture, finding balance between work and home. "I think about the algorithm sometimes," I admitted, "how something I created alone in my apartment became the foundation for everything." "Regrets?" I shook my head. "I could have left for another job, started my own company, but I stayed because I believed in what we were building together. And now I know the difference between loyalty and ownership, between building something and belonging to it." Victor nodded. "You turned their betrayal into our victory, Adrian. That's not just coding, that's legacy." My line suddenly went tight. I stood carefully, reeling in a good-sized trout. After we got it in the boat, Victor laughed. "Still got the touch." Later, as we headed back to shore, I noticed the steel core building visible in the distance, its logo catching the sunlight. It wasn't the same company anymore, better in some ways, still finding its way in others. But it was ours. Not just mine, not just Victor's or Patricia's, everyone who built it, piece by piece. Some things you can't own alone, some things you shouldn't.